Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in today. My name is Mindy Willis, and I'm from Student Leadership Services. And if you were able to join Dawn Flood and I last time, we talked about assertiveness. If you didn't watch the video on assertiveness, you can find it on our website at slstoday.org or on our YouTube channel at SLS Today. So again, thank you for joining me today. And the topic today is resolving conflicts. And everyone has conflicts in their lives, and they usually result when we have conflicting goals with another person. So you can have a small conflict, maybe with your brother or your sister over what TV show to watch, or a conflict with your parents over when to do the dishes. So those are small conflicts. And sometimes in our lives we have bigger conflicts. And so we're going to talk about ways to deal with those more effectively today. And so before we do that, I would like you to take a minute and respond to 3 questions. The first question is, who in your life do you have conflicts with? The second question is, what do you have conflicts about? And the third question is, what was the last conflict you had? Who was it with? And how did you respond? So I'd like you to take a minute to answer those 3 questions before we talk further about how to resolve conflicts. So go ahead and pause the video, and I'll see you in a minute. I'm back. So it's important to keep in mind that conflicts are a part of life and that it's okay to have a conflict. But your goal is to be able to solve that conflict in a healthy way that allows you to achieve your goal, in other words, what you want or don't want that resulted in the conflict, and also to maintain the relationship with the person that you're in conflict with. So we're going to talk some more about, give you some examples of conflicts and some of the strategies that people use when they have conflict, and how that strategy either meets the goal, in other words, gives the person what they want, and how that strategy does or does not maintain the relationship. Before we talk about the strategies and actions that people take to resolve conflicts, I wanted to talk first about 2 of the questions that I asked you to think about when you pause the video. And the first one was, who do you have conflicts with? Now, when I work with students, the most common responses I hear to that question are that they have conflicts with their parents, their siblings, and their friends. And this is very typical for everyone. And then, what do you have conflicts about? Are also some common topics come up when I work with students, and I would imagine that you have wrote down some of these. And those conflicts with parents often center around chores. You need to do the dishes or clean your room, homework and when to do it, and then media use. That also seems to be a source of conflict sometimes between parents and kids. When it comes to conflicts with our siblings or our friends, those things tend to revolve around gossip, maybe saying something that's not nice about someone else or talking about them behind their back, bullying and cyberbullying via text messaging or Snapchat or other social media, and then peer pressure. Sometimes we get in conflicts with people because they're pressuring us to make a choice that we think might not be good for us, and that could result in conflict. So these are, again, things that people that we often have conflicts with, and reasons that we often have conflicts with people. So now let's go ahead and talk about ways that people deal with conflicts. So we're going to talk about different strategies or actions that people take when they are in a conflict with someone else. And the first one we're going to talk about is striking back. And in each strategy, we're going to look at, is the goal achieved? And is the relationship maintained? And we're going to do this in the context of probably a very common conflict that you might have is a friend asks you to hang out, but you might have chores to do or some other requirements that your parents might want. So we'll use that example as we work through each of the actions or the strategies. So in the strike back example, if your friend wants you to hang out and you say, I can't, I have chores I have to do, and the friend yells at you and says, well, if you don't hang out, you're not my friend. That would be an example of striking back. And in that example, in terms of achieving the goal, it does achieve the goal for one person. In other words, the person who might want to hang out gets to hang out with you, but it doesn't achieve the goal for you because now you're not able to do your chores. And because of that, your relationship might be damaged because you now feel threatened by that person, or you feel that that person doesn't care about what's important for you. So striking back is not a good strategy for resolving conflicts. The next common strategy for dealing with conflict or action that sometimes people take is the give-in strategy. Some people either don't like conflict or they're afraid of conflict. So whenever they're in situations where they feel there might be a conflict, to avoid it, they just give in. So if in the situation I mentioned earlier, so a friend wants to hang out with you and you have chores to do, you don't want them to be mad or you don't want a conflict, so you just say, oh yeah, sure, I'll hang out, and you worry about doing your chores later. So in this case, is the goal achieved? Well, it is, again, for the one person who gets what they want, so part of that goal is achieved, and the relationship is maintained, but by you giving in, then you're not achieving your goal. And so again, this is not a great strategy to use to resolve conflicts. The next strategy or action you can take when you have a conflict is to break off. And breaking off happens when you want to avoid a conflict altogether and you don't even want to engage in a conversation about it. So by breaking off, you either leave the room or you leave the scene altogether. Whatever it is, you don't engage in the conflict at all. You just immediately leave. And in that type of using that type of strategy, your goal is not achieved because you did not get what you want. So in our example of the friend hanging out and you having to do chores, if you just refuse to engage the conversation, you're not reaching your goal, and nor are you maintaining the relationship. So neither person's needs or goals were met when you go ahead and just break off or walk away and leave that conflict hanging there. The next one I want to talk about is a compromise. And when you have a compromise with someone or make a compromise with somebody, the idea is that you want to meet them halfway. And this is a good strategy to use to help you resolve conflicts. Hopefully you've noticed that the first three, striking back, giving in, or breaking off, are not effective strategies to resolve conflicts. Compromise, however, is a good strategy to help you resolve conflicts. And when you compromise with someone, when you make that effort to meet them halfway, you're able to at least partially achieve your goal. So for the example of your friend wants to hang out and you want to do chores, you might tell your friend, hey, I can't hang out today, I have chores to do, but how about tomorrow? So that's a compromise. You're still taking the time to hang out together. It might not be exactly when the friend wants it, so that's where the compromise comes in. But you are partially achieving, each of you achieving your goal. And importantly, you've maintained that relationship. So again, compromise, taking the time to meet someone halfway, is a good strategy for resolving conflicts. The last strategy or action you can take to help you resolve conflicts is negotiation. And in negotiation, you and somebody work together to resolve the conflict. And the idea is by doing that, you can create a situation that's a win-win for both parties. So when you engage in negotiation to solve a conflict, you're able to achieve your goal, although it might look a little bit different than you originally wanted it to. And then you're also able to maintain your relationship. So if we go back to our example of you and your friend wants to hang out and you have to do chores, a negotiation might look like your friend says, hey, do you want to hang out this afternoon? And you say, well, I have chores to do. Would you maybe be willing to help me do some of my chores? Then we can get them done faster so I can hang out. So that would be an example of a negotiation. So in that negotiation, again, you worked together to come up with a solution that both of you could achieve your goals, meaning you could get your chores done and your friend and you could hang out. So each of you gets the goal that you want, and your relationship is maintained. Okay? So the two strategies that are actions that are most effective for resolving conflicts are compromise, when each person gives a little bit to enable each person to best be able to reach their goals, and negotiation, where you actively talk about how to work together to come up with a resolution. Now that we've talked about 5 ways that you can approach resolving conflict, and we've talked about how the first 3 ways are not effective strategies, I want you to think back about the conflict that you wrote down at the beginning of the lesson. If you look back at that conflict that you wrote down, were you able to resolve it using compromise or negotiation? If you were, terrific, keep it up. But if you weren't, here are some questions I want you to ask yourself. What could you have done differently in that conflict with that person that would have enabled you to compromise so that you could get a little bit of what you want and the other person would too? Also, what could you have done differently to negotiate a different solution to that conflict so that the other person and you both get what you wanted? So it's important to think through those, ask yourself those questions when you're having conflicts with people, because it's easy when you enter a conflict to just get angry and strike back, or to not feel like arguing and just give in, or to not want to deal with the conflict at all and just walk away. But I encourage you to try not to do those things. When you enter into a conflict, be confident and assertive, like we talked about last time, and respectful to somebody, and sit down and talk about how can we work together to either come up with a compromise, or how can we negotiate so that we can each get what we want and resolve our conflict in a healthy way. So thanks so much for tuning in today, and feel free to send us an email or follow us on social media to let us know what you think about the video. Thanks again, and have a great day.